Perfect. And then we'll get started, probably like 30 seconds, just to keep it on the time. Alrighty, so we have hit 1 o'clock. We'll still have a few more people coming on in, but we're going to get started. Good afternoon. My name is Mikhail English. Welcome to our workforce webinar. I am an employee of the Illinois Center for Specialized Professional Support at Illinois State University. I will be your moderator, technical support for today's webinar. You are at the final MOU guidance for program year of 2026. As a reminder, all participants in the webinar do not have the ability to unmute yourselves. If you have any questions as the webinar proceeds, please just post them in the chat box or the Q&A. No worries, we will address them throughout, and at the end, I think we'll have a few Q&A sessions throughout our time together. A reminder, this webinar will be recorded. The presentation recording, any materials from today's meeting will be available on the Illinois Workforce Academy website within 48 hours of today's session. I won't put the link, but you will be able to get that on our website. To be accessible as possible, the webinar will be offering closed captioning live transactions. Feel free to turn those on using your Zoom toolbar. Tomorrow, each attendee will receive a follow-up email that will include a survey asking about today's webinar. Please feel free to provide feedback and any suggestions that you might have to help those upcoming and help us improve our professional development efforts. We're actually going to start out today with a poll. So just in a second, if you guys want to answer those questions, just a few. Question 1, which partner do you represent? Love it. We're already getting some answers in. Lots of Title I. Question 2, where is your area located? I know people are still getting situated, so I'll give a little bit more time to get those. All right. And as you can see, we have a lot of Title I, a few scattered throughout, some state or local workforce innovation board. We also, when we're looking at our location, a lot from Central Illinois and Northern and Southern. Overall, thank you guys for being here with us. Welcome to our guidance for program year of 2026. I'm going to pass it on to our presenters and let them take it away.
Thank you. Welcome everyone to the program year 2026 final guidance for MOUs and budgets, as well as the regional and local plan modifications. My name is Benton McCarthy, and I'm a consultant with KEB, and we help support the implementation of WEO activities across the state. Joining me today are Drew Thomason and Mike Baker. I don't know if you guys want to do a quick intro.
Sure. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. My name is Drew Thomason. I also work at KEB supporting WIOA implementation throughout the state. A lot of my focus is on statewide activities and planning efforts. That includes our overarching state plan, as well as helping our 10 economic development regions and 22 local areas with their required planning efforts, including that 2-year modification.
And I'm Mike Baker. I do pretty much the same thing that Drew does, except I do it for DCO, Office of Employment and Training. I manage the planning unit, which includes all the planning activities, MOU activities, and sector strategies, and a few other things that come along with that. So nice to have everybody with us today. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. So we're presenting on behalf of the WIOA Interagency Technical Assistance Team, which supports multiple phases of both the MOU process and the regional and local plan work. Our goal today is to walk through the final guidance and help you understand how to apply it as you move onto the MOU negotiations in your local area and begin preparing for the regional and local plan modifications. Today's presentation, we're going to cover the following reminders related to the MOU and budget negotiations, final MOU guidance for PY 26 MOU negotiations, the timeline of all activities related to the MOU process, and then the final regional and local plan modification guidance. We're going to open it up for questions at the end of the MOU guidance section, and then again at the end of the regional and local plan modification section. So try to keep those questions more like MOU based at the beginning and then regional and local plan based at the end. But if you do have anything come up MOU related at the end, obviously still reach out. And then you can also plug those questions into the chat throughout the presentation as they come up. So we'll start out with some MOU and budget negotiation reminders. So the MOU is the framework that brings all partners together around a unified approach to service delivery. It outlines how programs, service providers, one-stop operators, leaseholders, stakeholders, and local workforce boards work collectively. And it reinforces the shared commitment to coordination, integration, and customer-focused service. It also sets the expectations for how partners will negotiate and collaborate in good faith. While the MOU is only renegotiated every 3 years, several elements require more frequent updates. Shared costs must be reviewed and renegotiated each year, and other pieces of the MOU may need to be adjusted as guidance evolves or as local conditions change, such as shifts in service providers, updated FTE commitments, or changes in the one-stop operator or leaseholders. The annual MOU amendment process is in place specifically to help local areas keep their MOU and budget aligned and current. So this slide summarizes the core decisions that the MOU puts in writing. At a high level, the MOU clarifies what services are available through the local one-stop system, where those services can be accessed, and how each partner delivers their portion of the work. It also outlines the responsibilities of the one-stop operator, how referrals will be coordinated across programs, and how partners will follow through on service integration plans. And finally, it documents the partners' commitments to sharing the infrastructure and system costs each year. Essentially, the MOU captures what services are provided, where and how they're provided, and what each partner is responsible for, both programmatically and financially. The PY 26 MOU negotiations run January 1st, 2026 through May 31st, 2026, with the MOU taking effect July 1st, 2026. Program year 2026 will run July 1st, 26 through June 30, 27. And it's the first of a 3-year MOU cycle, which the MOU cycle is going to run July 2026 through June of 2029. So the next portion of the presentation, we're going to cover the final MOU guidance for program year 2026. So there are 7 sections to the final MOU guidance: MOU template, MOU narrative, direct linkage checklists, budget spreadsheet, best practices, final MOU submittal date, and the MOU signature pages. You should have received a copy of the final guidance. If anyone on this call hasn't received the guidance, put a comment in the chat, or send me or Drew or Mike an email after the presentation, and we can get you that final guidance. One thing that I'll point out, I'm sure a lot of you are on the draft guidance presentation. Nothing has changed from the draft guidance to the final guidance. So a lot of this might sound repetitive, but that guidance has stayed the same since that last presentation. So like I said, there weren't any new requirements added to the PY26 MOU template, and the only change was the removal of one item from Section 18. So before you start working on your MOU, make sure that you're using the updated template from the WIOA resource page. That way you're using that correct version of the template. And if you haven't gotten on the WIOA resource page recently, it has been updated to include the newest template, some updated contact lists, and a few other things. So even though the template itself didn't change, we did expand the narrative guidance for several sections. These are areas where many local areas tended to need more detail or clarification. So as we go through these sections today, we'll highlight what's expected in the narrative and offer additional support to help make those pieces clearer and more consistent. So the first section that we want to touch on is in section 7, which covers the description of comprehensive one-stop services. For program year 2026, there are 2 requirements from this section that generated most revisions. So those are the ones that we want to highlight again. The first requirement relates to how each partner delivers its services, whether that's on-site, through direct linkage, or cross-training. This is where we saw a majority of the edits in program year 25. When a partner uses direct linkage, the narrator needs to briefly explain what that looks like in practice. So just a simple statement about the method of services being delivered or being provided is really all that requirement needs. And then the second requirement didn't lead to as many revisions, but it was still missed in a few local areas. And this piece just asks for a short description of when the services are available during regular business hours. Again, just a straightforward statement about availability is all that's required. So really, both of these can just say something simple like we're going to be offering these services Monday through Friday, 8 to 4:30 p.m. on site, or direct linkage through phone call and Zoom. Whatever your methodology is, that's as simple as it needs to get to cover both of those requirements. So then here in section 10, this is the procurement of the one-stop operator. And we didn't see as many revisions here, but most of the requirements in this section have multiple parts. So I'm not going to go through each of these individually, but we just kind of wanted to point out that when you're completing section 10 of the MOU, just to make sure that you read through each of those bullet points, because most of them have multiple items within them. So you might answer the first part or the first 2 parts of it, but then there might be a third part that if you leave that out, that could lead to a revision. So for PY26, the MOU cover page isn't required. The cover page is only used during amendment years. So you'll see it come back for program years 27 and 28. But for this year, that can be skipped since it's a full renewal year. All right, so for part 3 for program year 26, the direct linkage checklists are no longer required to be submitted to the state as part of the full MOU documentation package. That's a change from the previous 2 years when the checklists had to be included with the submission. It's still required to be completed and turned into your local MOU negotiator. So that part hasn't gone away, but it's just the piece of submitting that in with the rest of the MOU documentation. So the narrative, the budget, the signature pages, that kind of stuff. The next piece of the final guidance is with the budget spreadsheet. So this portion, we're going to talk about a couple key areas to watch for, particularly some spots where there's been compliance issues in the past. So the goal will just be to ensure that your budgets are accurate and consistent. So this first screenshot on the left shows the one-stop operator tab, which needs to be updated anytime the one-stop operator contract changes. And for some local areas, this is every year. For other local areas, it might be 3 years. It just depends on your local area. So whenever you're going to update that, just make sure that the most current contract dates are out there. So like this one would be fine for PY25 as it goes through June 30th, 2026 when PY25 ends. But those dates would not work for PY26 because that would go through June of 27. So then on the right screenshot, you'll see where the partner responsibility for payment or the payee must be listed. Anytime there's a dollar amount in that budget, there should be a corresponding payee that needs to be identified. So as you work through the budget spreadsheet, just double check each row, make sure that if there's an amount, there should be a payee listed. So you can see on this one, it's shared infrastructure costs, and IDES is listed as the payee. So this screenshot is from the D Shared Cost Center 1 tab, also in that budget spreadsheet. And in cell B76, each local area must select the correct one-stop operator model. So that's either going to be single entity or consortium. We're highlighting this because some areas either didn't select an option or chose one that didn't match what was being stated within that MOU narrative. So you're going to hear me say it a lot, but just making sure that what's listed in that budget spreadsheet aligns with what's in that MOU narrative. They need to be saying the same thing. So this screenshot is also from the D Shared Cost Center 1 tab. A common issue that we see is that all service delivery costs get entered into those rows 84 through 86. And then rows 89 through 91 are reserved specifically for the one-stop operator or the one-stop operator contributions. So both sections need to have amounts listed. Rows 89 through 91 would be the OSO contributions, and then 84 through 86 would be the rest of the service delivery costs. So on this screenshot, I know you can only see like Title I and the first couple rows, but it has an accurate breakdown. It's showing in 89 through 91 that they're contributing through in-kind staff. And then above that in 84 through 86, it's the rest of those contribution amounts. So one thing that some of the local areas would kind of just throw everything in 84 through 86, but we really need to utilize 89 through 91 as well. So this next screenshot, this is from the notes section of the D Shared Cost Center 1 tab. And it shows where the one-stop operator details would need to be entered. The key point here is simply to ensure that this section is completed and that the information matches what's documented in Section 10 of the MOU. As I've gone through looking through these items, local areas have gotten good at completing these sections, but again, just making sure that what's getting put in Section 10 of the MOU in that narrative, those same notes are listed here in the bottom of in the budget. And it's not just the one-stop operator. There's 4 note sections in that budget. So just making sure that each of those sections are aligning with what's in the MOU narrative. So then the variance table, this should only list the total cash contributions for each partner in the first column. Those cash totals come from the bottom of the B Total Shared Cost Center, All Centers tab in the budget spreadsheet. Most revisions we see on this table happen when partners enter the total contribution amount and not just the cash contribution amount. So if the cash is off in that first column, then it's going to be incorrect the rest of the way, because the second column is just that 10% of the total cash, and then the third column is total cash plus the 10% variance. So yeah, again, this is just another scenario. We're making sure that what is listed in the budget matches what is in that MOU narrative. And that variance table, that's in section 13 of the narrative. All right, so the next portion of the final MOU guidance is about best practices. So we're going to walk through that here on this slide. The first, so for best practices around contributions, just making sure that all in-kind and non-cash contributions are fully negotiated and clearly documented so that everyone agrees, and so it's easy to demonstrate transparency if an audit were to occur. And then the other best practice is on the MOU narrative side, and it basically just helps share drafts in Word with track changes turned on. This makes it easier for partners to provide feedback, and it speeds up the fiscal and the legal review process. And I know there was a little bit of a discussion at the draft MOU guidance regarding the use of track changes, and if anybody at any of the local areas hasn't really utilized this, or would like some additional support, definitely reach out to me whenever you get to that stage in the process, and I can help kind of show you the best way to utilize track changes. Because again, it makes it quicker and easier for the next person reviewing, just to show what has been changed from the previous year. I know that this year is going to be a little different because we're starting fresh, but for future years. But then also after the interagency technical assistance team has reviewed and sent those letters out, and you start to make those changes, having the track changes on it'll expedite the review process. So all the partners and everybody can kind of see, okay, here's what was changed from the original version. But then also, whenever you go to submit this back to the state, submit a red line or track change version, but then also accept those changes and submit a clean version. So making sure that both of those versions are turned in whenever you get to that stage in the process. So yeah, the final MOU submittal date is May 29th, 2026, for program year 26. It's on the 29th because the 30th and the 31st fall on the weekend. And then the final portion of the final MOU guidance is around signatures. So this, again, hasn't changed, and the form itself hasn't changed. But just wanted to highlight a couple things. So if you're using the electronic signature option, making sure that you've completed all the required steps through the comptroller's office, and then check that confirmation box, which is kind of shown at the bottom of the screen. So if you're going to go the electronic route, that's what you would need to do, mark the box, and then also, yeah, make sure that you've worked with the comptroller and all that's been done. But ultimately, wet signatures are still the preferred method. But either way, that's for the signature piece. But then also, when you're completing the rest of this, just making sure that you avoid using abbreviations. That normally would result in getting it kicked back from the comptroller's office. You just got to spell out someone's title or the company, just spell it all out just to avoid any delays with the back and forth. And then also, just for the date, making sure that you've got an updated date and you're not pulling like from a previous year or anything like that. So now we're going to move on to the timeline for all of these MOU activities that are going to be coming up. So um, the supplemental guidance, that's kind of what we're talking about now. That was issued, I believe, December 4th, but definitely December of this year. The pre-program year planning forms, I know we've already gotten probably about 8 to 10 local areas that had submitted those as of yesterday. And a reminder email was sent out to the areas that hadn't submitted those. But that due date is December 31st, so here in a couple weeks. And then the report of outcomes with the preliminary budget and any waiver requests, that is April 15th. But I want to point out with that pre-program planning form, there's also the spot on that form. If you already know that the waiver exists, you can put that in the pre-program year form as well. It doesn't have to wait until the report of outcomes. That waiver is included on both of those forms. So then, and yeah, the report of outcome, April 15th. The program year 26 final MOU and budget and signature pages, those are due, like I said, May 29th, 26. And then the LWIAs will need to make any changes to the MOUs and the budgets based on the TA team's feedback. So from those revision letters that this year they went out mid-August, getting those back towards the end of September. I think this year it was early October for getting those changes back. But and then the final reviews after all the changes and everything are made, all the revisions are made, and the final reviews are complete. Getting all of those MOUs and budgets uploaded to Illinois WorkNet in October of 26. So on the bottom of this page, you can see the link to the WIOA resource page on Illinois WorkNet. And like I mentioned earlier, we've got this page up to date. If there's any additional items or changes that need to be made to anything, we get those updated pretty quickly. I know there's one contact list that once all those pre-program year forms come in, we'll be able to update that with all the negotiators for 26, like the MOU negotiator, the budget negotiator, and that contact list will get updated hopefully in early January, and then really that page will be set up and ready to go on the MOU side of things. So and that link, yeah, if the slides are going to be sent out like that was mentioned at the beginning of this. So if you don't have this link saved, it'll be out there with the slides, or just reach out to me again after the presentation, and I can send you that link. So then the next thing that I wanted to talk about, and we did this last year, and it was myself and Tanya Fry. We did a MOU negotiator slash MOU and budget training. It was kind of the first training like this, at least that I had been a part of. And it got a lot of positive feedback. So we're going to do it again this year. So February 4th, 26 from 1 to 2:30, a part of this same WIO Wednesday webinar series. We're gonna do it again and kind of revitalize it a little bit from last year, so it's not just the same presentation, but we are going to do that again, and it'll be similar in the fact that we'll cover just the different roles and responsibilities for the MOU negotiator, for the budget negotiator, just kind of how those negotiation meetings should kind of take place, like what kind of things need to be discussed and agreed upon throughout that process. And then we'll also, like I said, we'll get into the MOUs a little bit more detailed and the budget a little bit more detailed, and answer any questions that anybody has with those. So whether you're new to the process, it'll probably be very beneficial, or you just need a refresher. Um, yeah, it's really just meant to help. So come with questions for that. And yeah, I believe Tanya and I will be presenting that again. So I'm going to pause here and we'll see if there are any questions or anything before we move on to the regional and local plan modification portion of the presentation. I've kind of been looking at the chat and I haven't seen anything come through on that end. But yeah, if anybody has any questions, or if you, like I said, if you don't feel comfortable during the meeting having the question, you can definitely reach out to me, Drew, or Mike afterwards, and we can have a chat that way as well. So I don't see anybody's hands raised or anything. And I know that really, if you were on the draft guidance presentation, this really nothing's really changed. It's just finalized now. So um, okay, well, I'm gonna turn things over to Drew and Mike. And again, at the end, if you think of anything or you want to throw anything in the chat, we'll hopefully be able to answer your question then. But all right, Drew.
Thanks, Ben. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so I can run that slideshow. All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Again, thank you for joining us today. So Ben just went through the MOU guidance for PY26. That's really, as we like to say, kind of where the rubber hits the road, where those local partners make commitments on service delivery, but kind of a layer above that, describing kind of a higher level of that are region and local plans. So under WIOA, all of the economic development regions in the state, as well as the local workforce areas, are required to complete 4-year plans. This is in the same cycle as the state, which also has to complete a 4-year plan. That was done in 2024, but the law also requires that both are, I guess, the state, regions, as well as local areas do a modification midway through that plan. And the basic idea is that that modification ensures those plans are aligned with the current economic realities that might have shifted over the past 2 years. They're responsive to any labor market changes that we've seen over the past 2 years. They continue to be consistent with any changes to federal or state policies, as well as priorities. And it's important to remember that these modifications are not a full rewrite of those plans. They're really just targeted updates to reflect significant changes that have happened since your plan was initially approved. It's also to keep in mind that when doing these modifications and the original plan, we really like to see meaningful stakeholder engagement. That includes engaging all of the required partners in the local areas, as well as within the regions. Make sure that your plans reflect the needs of employers, as well as the industries in your regions and local areas, and that you work with any economic development entities, as well as your education partners. So that's the overview of both those plans and the modification process. Now, we're going to kind of cover 2 basic areas for this modification term. We want to remind you of the formatting requirements, so kind of really the nuts and bolts of what those plans look like. And then we are going to provide an overview of the changes to the planning guidance that was originally issued in 2024 or 2023 for the 2024 plan. And we have made some changes to those. So first, just some reminders about formatting requirements. The format has the plans broken into 6 chapters. Chapters 1 through 3 are the region plans. Chapters 4 through 6 are the local plans. Under each of those chapters, there are headings and subheadings. When writing and submitting your modification, please ensure that you follow that structure. That makes the reviewing faster. We can get back to you with any necessary revisions that you would have to do quicker. And it ensures that we can make sure that the plans you submit are in compliance with state and federal requirements. Unlike the MOU that you are now negotiate or will be negotiating, this is not the start of anything new, right? This is a modification. So we ask that when you do submit that modification, you submit 2 versions. You submit one version that is in a Microsoft Word document with track changes, just as Benton was talking about using track changes when you're negotiating those MOUs locally. When you submit your finalized modification to the state, please include track changes, as well as including a clean version that has all of those changes incorporated into the file. So those are the formatting areas. Now we want to talk about what has changed over the past 2 years in the guidance. I will say that the state's approach to this was to ensure that the changes were as little administratively burdensome to region and local areas, while also representing any changes that, again, we are seeing either from the feds or that the state is doing. So the first change is one that is across all 6 chapters. At the end of all of those chapters, there's a section corresponding to that chapter and the contents in that chapter that ask you to speak to the workforce equity lens. This was first instituted several years ago. That language has now been replaced, instead of a workforce equity lens, with responsive, inclusive, and accessible, or some version of those words. So at the end of those chapters, make sure that your responses to those 6 questions speak to those 3 words: responsive, inclusive, and accessible. This was done to align with what the Illinois Workforce Innovation Board is doing around equity language, as well as what the state is doing around that. And this is a response to an executive order by the current federal administration about removing equity language from federally funded programs. So this is a slight shift, but you'll see, I think, that the questions really don't change that much. It's more of a change in language to be in compliance. For the regional plans, you should should have received the updated data packets for your local economies and labor markets. We would ask that you would review those and incorporate any new analysis based on that new data into that regional plan. That's that shift in the labor market, changes in economic conditions. Make sure that you review those data packets, and the changes over the past 2 years that are reflected there are reflected in the region plan. We only have one other change in the region plan, and I'm going to hand it over to Mike Baker to talk through the change in that region plan.
Okay. Thank you, Drew. So this section is an attempt to further refine how we're asking you all about what you're doing with sector strategies and sector partnerships and talent pipeline management. So what we're attempting to do here is kind of eliminate the dichotomy between the concept of sector strategies and talent pipeline management. Like, all talent pipeline management is a sector strategy. Just not all sector strategies are talent pipeline management. Okay. So talent pipeline management is like the preferred method of sector strategies embraced by the State Workforce Board and DCO. And that's what we're encouraging everyone to use. And in past plans, we continue, and partially due to how we've worded the questions, to get lengthy lists of sectoral activities. So like the workforce area partnered with a company and worked on a project together, or you partnered with a CBO and together you worked on a project with one or two employers. That's all great, but that's not actually what we're looking for when we're asking about sector partnerships and talent pipeline management employer collaboratives. What we're looking for is groups of companies in a single sector that have come together and determined they want to work together and collaborate on issues of common concern and opportunities, pain points, things like that, on an ongoing basis. So it's not one-off projects, but a sector partnership, as we're defining it for planning purposes, is a group of companies that have come together to work on things on an ongoing basis. So we're asking you to identify potential neutral conveners of partnerships and the areas it might cover. Sector partnerships are not necessarily limited by lines on a map. It's all coalitions of the willing. So if you have companies or partners that have to be across a certain line on a map that want to participate, that's fine. So as you go through the guidance, you'll may see some shifts in the wording, but really we're just trying to get more at you talking and telling us about your efforts toward partnerships rather than projects. Okay. So if you have any questions on that, if you look at it, or if you have any questions now, I'd be happy to try to address them. But really, it's nothing we haven't really been asking for already. We're just kind of clarifying what we're asking for so we get more talk about partnerships and less talk about one-off projects.
Thanks, Mike. And I was on a meeting this morning with the U.S. Departments of Labor and Education regarding the state plan modification. And this is definitely one area where they are focused on. They really want to see these sectoral partnerships, meaningful partnerships that are addressing kind of the local needs of the economy and the employers.
Yeah. And I would add, if anybody doesn't know the difference or the term sector partnership is new to you, please reach out to me. I'll put my email in the chat pod here, and I'd be happy to walk you through what the differences are.
Thanks, Mike.
One other thing. If anyone is interested in ginning up a talent pipeline management employer collaborative or effort in your area, please contact me about that also, and we'll be happy to have a discussion about that. Okay, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Real quick before we move on, I want to go back. There was a question about this, and I just wanted to address it so everyone kind of hears the answer. The question was, is this just replacing, when replacing this language, does that include the verbiage of the questions themselves? So yes, the questions themselves, the requirements in that guidance have been changed to represent this new language. And we would ask that as you are modifying both your regional plans and your local plans, that your responses to those questions echo that change in language. So that everything we talked about changes across all chapters. We've talked about the changes in the regional plan. Now we want to talk real quickly about the three changes to the local planning guidance. So again, there are only three changes this year to that local planning guidance. They are located in Chapter 4, so the first chapter of that local plan, in Section H. And these changes are done for two reasons. The first was to respond to efforts at the federal level, changes at the federal level. And then the second is to make local plans more in line with the state plan. So the first one is describing broader support, how local areas will provide a broader support for immigrants and migrants. This is done through allowable and appropriate workforce services. And this is language that is mirrored from the state plan. The other two are responses to new initiatives at the federal level that the state is also working to incorporate in its state plan modification. So the first is any efforts at the local level to support SNAP recipients. As many of you know, and if you don't, there are new changes to work requirements for most of the SNAP recipients. And so that can include training. And so we're looking to see if what efforts might be underway at the local area to support those individuals. And the second is how you will, over the next 2 years, coordinate with workforce Pell Grant recipients. Again, the workforce Pell Grants are new grants. They're aimed at shorter term training. It's really an effort around, with how it ties into WIOA, is really around braided funding and how you can, if these workforce Pell Grant recipients are getting training, maybe other ways you could support them as they're receiving that training, even if it's not training specifically. Now, the Federal Department of Education is still working through the rule-making process on this. This is not finalized yet, and it will not be finalized while both you and the state are doing their modifications. So really what we're looking for here is just a plan over the next 2 years on how you're going to begin to coordinate with those recipients. It's really a plan for a plan. Before we jump into the timeline, we have 2 questions. Mike, one would be one for you that maybe you could address, and then one is me. I'll start with mine. So the question on, again, the responsive, inclusive, and accessible. Will that replace the use of DEI? Yes. So you can think of RIA replacing anywhere where we had DEI. That's going to be, again, in those 6 questions within each of those chapters. So when you look at the new guidance, you will see that those questions are really the same. It's just, instead of using diversity, equity, and inclusion, we are now using responsiveness, inclusivity, and accessibility. Again, this was an effort to align with kind of what the State Workforce Board is doing, and to make sure we don't have any content included within plans that could be flagged at the federal level. Mike, the question for you is, could you provide 1 or 2 examples of current ongoing sector partnership initiatives?
Sorry, I lost my mouse across 2 monitors. Yeah, I'd be happy to. There are several local workforce areas that are working on talent pipeline management, employer collaboratives. All of them are in the manufacturing sector. LWIA's 23 and 25 are at various stages of the talent pipeline management 6 strategy framework. And a third LWIA is doing the legwork now to start one up. So in all those instances, they've identified the local workforce board, in one case, working with the Economic Development Corporation in their area, um, brought together groups of manufacturers to discuss areas of common concern. They've identified, at least one area has gone far enough. They've identified their vital occupations, identified their need and their demand, their competencies and credentials that go with them. And we are tomorrow actually having a meeting for the first time between the companies and the training providers and service providers in the region who provide skilled workers for them to discuss how they might work together to improve the pipeline in their area. So there's several going on right now. Hope that
Thanks, Mike.
helps.
Thanks, Mike. Steve Martin, I see your question. We will answer that in just a minute. Okay, so let's go through the timeline. So supplemental guidance is now been issued. We would suggest that you begin to work on those updates of the plans, work on them starting now through February. In the early part of February, post your plan for public comment. We've had questions in the past as to how long that public comment period should be. And what the rules and regulations say is no more than 30 days. So 30 days is the most you should post it for public comment. We generally say 2 weeks is a good measure. 3 weeks is fine as well. In March, once that public comment period has ended, you will update your plan based on any feedback you received during that public time. And then your region and local plans that are approved by your local boards need to be submitted by March 31st. And that submittal process is the same as the MOU submittal process to that WIOA inbox. I'm going to, so Steve Martin had a question about, is this new guidance issued? Can everyone see the web browser now that I've pulled up?
Yep.
Okay. So yes, that is now live. I'll put this in the chat. That guidance is live. It is on this website. We have the guidance as well as those data packets if you would like to access those. The slides from today's webinar will also be put up here. The other thing that we provided in addition to the guidance, which if you've been through this before, it'll look very familiar. If you haven't, this is kind of what the guidance looks like. And we have a table of index. We have some instructions laying out kind of what we've covered today. Pardon my scrolling, but I'll get down into the components. And this is what, when I'm talking about the 6 chapters and sections, this is what that looks like. So that guidance is now live. To support you in the modification, we've included supplemental instructions for modifying the plans. Again, it covers that formatting that we discussed, and it more descriptively describes where those changes have been made. So you know exactly what chapter, section, and subsection you need to be reviewing. So it lists out all of those areas and those updated content. Yes, I see someone asking that they can't open attachments and sites on your security protocols. If you put your email in the chat, not in the Q&A box, but if you put that in the chat, we can send that information to you. I'm going to go back to the slideshow now. We've had a lot of chat is disabled. Could we enable the chat for participants? So if they,
yes,
thank you.
I can get that going.
Thank you. We've answered a few questions about the regional and local plan guidance, plan modification guidance. Are there any other questions that anyone has? So just as a recap, real quick. So the links in the Steve Martin said the links in the guidance were not working for him. Do you mean the links in the PDF of the guidance or on the web page for the guidance? If you can put that in the PDF. All right, we will review that. And if they aren't working, if it's a system-wide thing, we'll update that. And if not, Steve, we'll send you some additional information to help with those links.
For what it's worth, I was able to download and open a couple documents just a few minutes ago from the landing page. So hopefully it's an isolated issue.
So it's we have someone else opening the files. Just as a clarification, Betty, so Steve said it was the files within the links in the PDFs that he was having challenges with. Betty, for you, is it the links on this page that you're having challenges with, or is it something within a document that you've gotten off this page that you're having challenges with? While you type that in there, I just want to kind of recap for everyone quickly kind of what we're looking for the region and local plan modifications. So first of all is to update that economic analysis in the regional plan based on those updated PDFs. The second is to, in each of the 6 chapters, make the changes to use responsive, inclusive, and accessible instead of diversity, equity, and inclusion. In the region plans, updating that area around sector partnerships based on kind of that definition that Mike provided us today and the updated language that hopefully provides some clarity for that in the guidance. And then updating those 3 subsections in chapter 4 for the local areas regarding supporting immigrants and migrants through appropriate and allowable services, efforts to support SNAP program recipients, and describe how you will coordinate services over the next 2 years for workforce Pell Grants. Thank you. And Betty, Benton is replying to you in that chat. I'm going to one last slide. I'll share that in just a second. All right. If no one has any other questions, again, I just want to thank everyone for joining us today. On the screen right now, this will be included in that presentation slide deck that you'll also have access to, are both the phone number that you can reach Benton and I at if you have any questions, as well as our emails. If you need assistance at any time, whether that's accessing a file or if you have questions of clarification around any of the guidances, please reach out to us and we will do our best to respond to you on a timely manner. And Benton just put all 3 of our emails into the chat as well. If there are no more questions, thank you, everyone. Have a good winter break. Happy holidays and enjoy your time.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you all so much for hopping on and joining this Wednesday webinar. Just be on the lookout in the next 48 hours. You're going to be getting that survey as well as any materials that were used here today. Again, if not, happy holidays, stay warm, enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.